The woman in the mercilessly lit mirror was a stranger. 27 years old, pinned into an ivory silk gown that felt more like a cage, about to marry a man who appraised me like property. They called it a wedding. I knew it was a transaction. My name is Jessica, and I was about to sell my life to save my brother from the powerful Sterling family. But as I stared at my hollow reflection, my dead mother's locket felt like it was burning a hole through my chest, screaming a single word: run. Before I share my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe. If you've ever had to sacrifice everything for your family, trust me, you're going to want to hear what happens next. The mirror in the bridal suite was merciless, reflecting every inch of the gown that clung to me like a second skin. It was beautiful: ivory silk, hand-stitched lace, a train that cascaded like a frozen waterfall, but it felt like armor I hadn't chosen. The Sterling family's lakeside estate in Whispering Pines, Washington, hummed with pre-wedding chaos outside the door. Lilies choked the air, their sweetness mixing with the sharp sting of hairspray. I stared at my reflection, my brown eyes wide but hollow, my chestnut hair pinned into an elaborate updo that tugged at my scalp. I looked like a bride. I felt like a prisoner. A frantic knock shattered the silence. "Jess, 5 minutes!" Chloe's voice, my best friend since high school, was a mix of forced cheer and nervous energy. "Rick is so excited." My chest tightened at his name. Richard Sterling, my fiancé. The man who was supposed to be my future but felt more like my owner. His compliments always landed like appraisals, his hands too possessive, his smile too calculated. This wasn't love. It was a transaction. I turned from the mirror, my fingers brushing the locket at my throat. Mom's locket, small and silver, the only piece of her I had left. She'd died when I was 16, leaving me to raise Leo, my reckless younger brother, while Dad drowned in grief and whiskey. I'd pinned the locket to my gown this morning, telling myself it was her blessing, a sign I was doing the right thing. Marrying Rick would settle Leo's gambling debts to the Sterlings, debts that had spiraled into threats, whispered promises of ruin. This wedding was supposed to save us, save them. Another knock, softer this time. The door creaked open, and Leo stepped in, adjusting his tie. His face, so like Mom's with its sharp cheekbones and warm eyes, was pale. "You look perfect, Jess," he said, his voice thick. "You're saving us." The word saving hit like a gunshot. 20 years of being the responsible one, giving up my art scholarship, working dead-end jobs to keep us afloat, playing mother to a brother who gambled away our future, crashed over me. The dress squeezed my ribs, the locket burned against my skin. Rick's cold smile flashed in my mind, his voice from last night. "You're mine now, Jessica. Don't forget that." I wasn't saving anyone, I was erasing myself. My hands trembled as I gripped the vanity. The room spun, the lilies-thatched scent suffocating. I saw Mom's face in my mind, not smiling, not blessing this. Her eyes were fierce, urging me to run. Clarity cut through the panic like a blade. I couldn't do this. I wouldn't. I stood, my reflection a stranger in white. "Jess?" Leo's voice was uncertain. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was already moving toward the door. I pushed past Leo, his stunned face a blur, and forced a smile for Chloe as I opened the door. "Be right back," I lied, my voice steady despite the storm inside. The marble hallway stretched endlessly, chandeliers glittering like judgmental eyes. Guests in tailored suits and glittering dresses turned, their murmurs fading as I walked faster, the gown's train dragging like a chain. My heels pinched useless, so I kicked them off, the cold stone biting my bare feet. I didn't care, I ran. The estate's heavy doors loomed ahead. I shoved them open and stumbled into the Washington twilight, the air thick with mist. The lake shimmered faintly, its surface swallowed by fog. My breath hitched, my heart pounding as I sprinted down the long driveway, the silk tearing against gravel. Voices shouted behind me, Leo, Chloe, others, but they were distant, muffled by the blood rushing in my ears. At the end of the drive, an old pickup truck idled, its headlights cutting through the haze. A man leaned against it, flannel shirt rolled up to his elbows, a cigarette glowing faintly. I didn't think. I ran to him, my voice raw. "Please, I need a ride. Anywhere but here." He looked me up and down, a bride in a torn gown, barefoot and wild-eyed. His brow quirked, amusement flickering in his dark eyes. "Hop in," he said, flicking the cigarette away. I scrambled into the passenger seat, the truck's leather cracked and warm. He didn't ask questions, just shifted gears and pulled onto the road. My phone buzzed in the small purse I'd grabbed on instinct. Texts from Rick. "Where are you?" Then, "You can't do this to me." Calls from Leo, from Chloe, from numbers I didn't recognize. I turned it off, my hands shaking. The trucker glanced at me but said nothing, his silence a small mercy. The fog thickened, swallowing the world outside. He dropped me at a 24-hour bus station in a nowhere town. The neon sign flickering. "Good luck, runaway," he said, giving a two-fingered salute before driving off. I stood there, the gown now streaked with dirt, the locket heavy against my chest. I reached for my wallet, then froze. My bank cards, Rick had access to them all. A quick check confirmed it, my accounts were frozen. The Sterlings had already cut me off. I was free, but I was nothing. No money, no plan, just a torn dress and a pounding heart. I sank onto a bench, the station's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The fog outside pressed against the windows, mirroring the haze in my mind. I was a fugitive from my own life, and I had nowhere to go. 2 days later, I was a ghost in the bus station, curled in a corner with a single coffee I'd been nursing for hours. The gown was gone, traded for a second-hand hoodie and jeans from a thrift shop, paid for with a pair of earrings I'd ripped from my ears and sold for $20. My stomach growled, my eyes burned, and every creak of the station's doors made me flinch, certain Rick or his father's men were coming for me. The locket was my only anchor, its cool weight against my skin a reminder of Mom, of something I couldn't yet name. I hadn't checked my phone since I'd turned it off, but desperation drove me to the station's computer kiosk. My personal email was a graveyard of spam, but my old professional account, the one I'd used for my art portfolio before I gave up painting, had a single new message. The subject line read, "Immediate opening, art teacher, Oakhaven Academy." The sender was a Dr. Eris Thorne, and the message was strange, almost cryptic. A private island in the San Juan archipelago. Housing provided. A focus on holistic learning and spiritual integration. It sounded like a scam, but the words, "housing provided," glowed like a lifeline. I had nothing left to lose. With the last of my cash, I bought a bus ticket north, then a ferry pass. The journey was a blur of gray skies and choppy waters, the Pacific Northwest fog wrapping the world in secrecy. I stood on the ferry's deck, the wind biting my face, the locket cold against my chest. What was I doing? Chasing a fantasy to an island I'd never heard of? But the alternative was worse. Crawling back to Rick, to Leo, to a life that wasn't mine. Oakhaven Island appeared like a dream through the mist, its cliffs jagged, its forests dense and green. The academy wasn't a gleaming campus but a cluster of rustic, adobe-style buildings nestled into the trees, as if they'd grown there. Dr. Thorne met me at the dock, his eyes calm and knowing, his gray hair tied back. "Jessica," he said, like he'd been expecting me forever. Beside him was Alex, a lanky teenager with wary eyes and a sketchbook tucked under his arm. They led me to a small cabin, its walls lined with books and woven blankets. For the first time in days, I exhaled. The air here was clean, sharp with pine and salt. I could breathe. That night, I lay on a narrow bed, the locket in my hand. The island hummed with quiet life, crickets, distant waves. It felt safe, like a world apart from the Sterling's sterile empire. But safety was fragile, and I knew it. I clutched the locket tighter, wondering if Mom had ever felt this free, or if she'd only dreamed of it. The island's rhythm seeped into me over weeks, like the tide smoothing a jagged stone. Oakhaven wasn't just a school, it was alive, humming with purpose. Mornings began with Nadia, a tribal elder with eyes like polished obsidian, teaching us to identify plants by their scent, their texture. Afternoons, I taught art, my hands remembering the brushstrokes I'd abandoned years ago. The students, a mix of misfits and dreamers, leaned into my lessons. Especially Alex. He was quiet, his sketches sharp and haunting, like he saw the world through a cracked lens. I saw myself in him, someone who'd learned to hide their heart. I started to feel like me again, the me I'd buried under Leo's debts and Rick's expectations. The locket stayed at my throat, a quiet reminder of Mom, but it felt lighter now, less like a chain. I laughed with Nadia over her stories of the island's spirits, sketched with Alex under the cedars, felt the sun warm my skin. For the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. Then the outside world clawed its way back. My phone, which I'd kept off, buzzed one evening as I charged it in my cabin. A voicemail from Leo, his voice raw, pleading. "Jess, please, you gotta come back. The Sterlings, they're saying it's my fault. Fix this, Jess, please." His words were a punch, guilt twisting in my gut. Then came Chloe's texts, a flood of them. "Are you okay? Where are you? What's the school like? Who's there?" Her concern felt wrong, too pointed, like she was fishing for something. I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering over her name. My best friend, who'd braided my hair in high school, who'd cried with me at Mom's funeral. Was she watching me for them? Dr. Thorne noticed the change in me the next day. "You're carrying something heavy again," he said, his voice low, his eyes searching. He'd been kind from the start, but now I saw it differently. Not just warmth, but a deliberate shield, like he knew more than he let on. "This place," he said once, "is a refuge but not a hiding spot." His words lingered, stirring unease. Was I safe here, or was Oak Haven just another kind of cage, one I didn't yet understand? I lay awake that night, the Locket's cool metal pressed against my palm. The island's quiet couldn't drown out the echoes of Leo's voice, Chloe's texts, the Sterling's shadow stretching across the water. I wasn't just running anymore. I was being hunted, and this harbor might be a battleground. Guilt gnawed at me, sharp as the wind off the cliffs. Leo's voicemail played on loop in my head, his desperation a mirror of the years I'd spent cleaning up his messes. Had I been selfish to run? Was I abandoning him? Abandoning Mom's memory? I sat on my cabin's porch, the locket in my hands, its silver worn smooth from years of my touch. I'd pinned it to my wedding dress, thinking it was Mom's approval of my sacrifice. Now, I wasn't so sure. My thumb brushed the locket's clasp, catching on something, a tiny ridge I'd never noticed. I pressed harder, and with a soft click, the back sprang open. Not a space for a photo, but a tightly folded scrap of paper, yellowed with age. My heart thudded as I unfolded it, the paper fragile under my fingers. A key to a safe deposit box, a string of numbers, and a single line in Mom's looping handwriting. "For when you're ready to be free. Truly free." I stared, my breath catching. Mom hadn't blessed that marriage. She'd known I'd need a way out, known the weight of being the responsible one would crush me. All those years she'd seen me hold our family together, and she'd left me this. Not a trinket, but a plan. A spark of rage flared. Why hadn't she told me, then melted into grief, then resolve? The locket wasn't a symbol of duty, it was a weapon, a map to something bigger. I paced the cabin, the key glinting in the lamplight. The numbers pointed to a bank in a mainland city, not far by ferry. I needed answers, needed to know what Mom had hidden. The guilt that had clawed at me hours ago transformed, hardening into purpose. This wasn't just about running anymore, it was about fighting, for her, for me. The next morning I showed the key to Dr. Thorne. His calm faltered just for a moment, his eyes narrowing as he recognized the bank's name. "We'll go," he said, his voice steady but edged with something deeper, like he'd been waiting for this. "But we need to be careful." His words confirmed my fear. Whatever was in that box, the Sterlings wouldn't let it go easily. I gripped the locket, Mom's words echoing in my mind. I was ready to be free. Dr. Thorne arranged the trip like it was a covert operation. We took a small boat to the mainland, the fog cloaking us as the island faded behind. My hands shook, the key tucked in my pocket, the locket heavy against my chest. Thorne was quiet, his eyes scanning the horizon like he expected trouble. "You're not the first to come here running," he said finally. "The Sterlings, they've cast a long shadow for a long time." His words landed like stones, hinting at a history he hadn't shared. At the bank, I played the part of a niece fulfilling a will, my voice steady despite the pulse hammering in my throat. The clerk led me to the vault, and the safe deposit box clicked open with a sound that felt final. Inside was a ledger, its leather cover worn but sturdy. I flipped it open, my breath catching. Pages of meticulous notes, dates, sums, names, money laundering, illegal land deals, intimidation tactics, all tied to the Sterling family. Their pristine empire was a lie, built on corruption. I sat back, the ledger heavy in my hands. This was what Mom had hidden, what she'd died protecting. But the final pages stopped me cold. Payments to another family, Chloe's father, my best friend's family, complicit in the Sterlings' schemes, her texts, her tears, her concern, all a performance to keep me in line, to ensure I married Rick. The betrayal sliced deeper than Rick's cruelty. deeper than Leo's weakness. Chloe, who'd known me since we were kids, had sold me out. Thorne's hand on my shoulder brought me back. "We need to move," he said, his voice low. "They'll know you're here." I nodded, clutching the ledger, my mind racing. The Sterlings had inflated Leo's debt to trap us, but Chloe's family had helped tighten the noose. I wasn't just a runaway bride anymore. I was a threat, and they'd come for me. We slipped out of the bank, the ledger hidden in my bag. The mainland felt exposed. Every passing car, a potential enemy. Thorne drove us to the ferry, his jaw tight. "This isn't over," he said, and I knew he was right. The ledger was a bomb, and I'd just lit the fuse. The ferry back to Oakhaven felt like a lifeline fraying. I clutched the ledger, its weight a reminder of the truth I now carried. Dr. Thorne's eyes flicked to the horizon, his hands tight on the boat's wheel. "They'll come for you," he said, his voice low, like he was stating a fact as plain as the rain starting to fall. I nodded, the locket warm against my skin, Mom's words echoing. Freedom wasn't just running, it was facing the storm. We reached the island as dusk deepened, the sky bruised with clouds. I barely had time to hide the ledger in my cabin when Alex burst in, his face pale. "They're here," he said, breathless. "Boats, 2 of them." My stomach dropped. Rick, his father. They'd found me. The confrontation unfolded on the bluffs, where the wind howled and waves crashed below. Rick stood there, his polished charm gone, his face twisted with fury. His father, a colder, sharper version of him, loomed behind. "You're coming home, Jessica," Rick snarled, grabbing my arm. His grip was iron, bruising. "This little game is over." I yanked free, my heart pounding, the locket swinging like a pendulum. I wasn't his anymore. Before I could speak, Dr. Thorne stepped forward, his calm voice cutting through the wind. "She belongs here," he said, not a plea but a declaration. Nadia appeared beside him, her presence steady as the cedars, her eyes fierce. Then from the trees, Alex and the students emerged, not with weapons but with spirit drums, their rhythm a low, primal pulse that shook the air. They formed a wall around me, silent, unyielding. I'd never seen anything like it, their quiet strength, their refusal to bend. Rick's father faltered, his confidence cracking. They were used to fear, not this. The sheriff's boat arrived, its lights cutting through the storm. Dr. Thorne had called him, and the man's weathered face was grim as he stepped onto the bluff. "You're on private land," he said to the Sterlings, his hand resting on his holster, "and I've got a dozen witnesses saying you're not welcome." Rick's eyes burned into mine, promising retribution, but his father pulled him back, muttering threats as they retreated to their boat. The drums faded, the rain cold on my face. I stood there, shaking, but not from fear. For the first time I felt rooted, held up by people who didn't owe me anything but chose me anyway. As the Sterling's boat vanished into the fog, Alex touched my arm, his sketchbook tucked under his jacket. "You're one of us now," he said, and I believed him. The ledger was still mine, a ticking bomb, but I wasn't alone anymore. Months later, the island felt like home, its rhythms as familiar as my own heartbeat. The ledger had done its work. I'd handed it to federal investigators who tore into the Sterling's empire like wolves. Headlines screamed of money laundering, land grabs, and worse. Rick and his father were indicted, their pristine facade shattered. Chloe's family fell too, implicated in the ledger's final pages. A single letter arrived from her, a half-hearted apology scrawled in shaky ink. I didn't answer. Some betrayals cut too deep. Leo came to the island one gray morning. We sat on the beach, the waves lapping at our feet. His face was thinner, his eyes heavy with guilt. "I'm sorry, Jess," he said, voice breaking. "I leaned on you too long." I let him talk, let the tears come, but I didn't rush to fix it. I forgave him, not for him, but for me. "I'm your sister, Leo," I said, my voice firm, "not your savior." He nodded, and for the first time I saw him try to stand on his own. Dr. Thorne offered me a permanent role at Oakhaven, not just teaching but shaping the curriculum, weaving art into the island's strange, beautiful ways. I accepted, my hands already itching to paint again. The students, especially Alex, became my family. Not the one I was born into, but the one I chose. Tigre, the tabby cat I'd adopted, curled at my feet each night, his purring a soft anchor. One spring morning, I sat on my cabin's porch, a mug of tea warming my hands. Alex sketched nearby, his pencil scratching out the mountain's jagged lines. The San Juan Islands stretched before us, their peaks sharp against a pink sunrise. The locket rested against my chest, No longer a weight but a reminder of Mom, of the courage she'd hidden from me, of the path I'd carved. I wasn't running anymore. I was building. Life wasn't a grand plan, I'd learned. It was a series of choices, each one braver than the last. The air was cool, clean, carrying the scent of cedar and salt. I breathed deeply, feeling the world settle around me. I was free, not just from the Sterlings, but from the version of me I'd outgrown. The sunrise promised more than a new day. It promised a life I could claim as mine. My story began with the cage and ended with the sunrise. The greatest lesson I learned is that you are not defined by the role others assign you, savior, sibling, or spouse. True freedom starts the moment you decide your own worth. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is break the promises that are breaking you. Never forget that your life is your own to write. If my story resonated with you, please share your thoughts below. What does being truly free mean to you? Like and subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your own path.